So I work for Johnson & Johnson. I'm on loan to MDIC as a program manager for Case for Quality. And before I introduce Beth and Robin, in keeping with Dr. Shuren's point this morning about the growth of MDIC, the Case for Quality has really grown this year. We are up over 115 folks working on Case for Quality or attending the forums, representing 50 diverse medical device firms, government, academia, and consultants. And so the work you're about to see is representative of those folks working, mainly voluntarily, on this Case for Quality. So I'd like to introduce Beth Staub. She's the Global Vice President of Regulatory and Quality Assurance, and Robin Newman, who's the new Director of Office of Compliance of CDRH. So Robin and Beth.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for staying. I know some people will have to be going, but we only have a few minutes to spend with you, so we want to try to spend it real strategically here and get you some good information. If I can figure out. There we go. So Case for Quality. Just Dr. Shuren mentioned this in his talk this morning, so you are familiar, I'm certain, with the Case for Quality. Just so that we're on the same sheet of music, the idea is to move us beyond compliance to where we're really having a consistent, sustained conversation throughout the entire medical device ecosystem about what is quality. When we talk about quality, we're talking about really meeting, and again, a sustained, reliable way, the needs of our customers. The ecosystem is broad. It's patients, it's providers, it's regulators, it's companies, it's payers. And we're trying to get the entire ecosystem involved in this conversation. And right now, we're kind of at an inflection point. We're at a point where we've done a lot of conceptual work, we've done a little piloting, and now we have to figure out how to launch this and how to move it into something more important and still at the same time stay very tightly aligned with one another as we go through the process. We're trying to identify several very key critical features and things that we need to do to move to quality and away from just a compliance conversation. So a little bit about the background you can kind of see from the slide here. We've been working with MDIC for a couple of years on this project, and it has been hard. And I'm telling you that because this is not just about change, this is about transformation. It's truly fundamentally transforming the way that we think and approach quality. And in order to do that, we had to do a lot of work together. And what you're going to see in a moment here, an example of 4 different working groups that have been put together in order to help us make that transition and make that change. So let me introduce Beth.
Thank you, Robin. As Robin said, the work that MDIC Case for Quality has undertaken came out of the original survey that the FDA started to try to understand why is it that in the medical device field, perhaps more than many other industry segments, the idea of product quality and compliance are disconnected, and how in fact can we start to connect them back together, both in the way industry and management thinks about them, but also in the rank and file FDA inspectors who are out visiting our firms. And the idea here is that there's a continuum of thinking of projects that we can undertake in order to be able to bring people along that transition. To be able to do it, we've launched 4 different work streams, as you heard from Robin. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about each of them at a high level in terms of why the MDIC Steering Committee thinks they are the right for this time, and from an industry perspective, the way we're thinking about how we could potentially use these and they add value. So first up is the Quality Maturity Model Project, an industry standard quality system maturity model that will replace a whole series of different tools that are out there. I think of this one as really a bookend to audit and inspection. So audit, internal audit, as we all do on the industry side, inspection as the FDA does as part of its purview. It's largely around looking about how you're performing today against your standards or against your internal specifications. The maturity model is much more of a benchmarking exercise. It's a thought process that allows you to see where do you come in today against what great looks like in different segments of your business, and how can you strategically pick out the ones where you want to get better to drive product quality and step your way along it. As a quality leader in industry, I can tell you that it still is not that uncommon to get a question when you ask for resources. Well, it looks like we're doing okay. We're doing really good on our FDA inspections. And this is a tool that can help us really change that mindset and put in perspective how we can get better. We've picked a standard called CMMI. We're doing pilots. The trick here is going to make sure we come up with a model that's actually doable and implementable across a range of sizes of companies. Next up is the metrics projects that's being done in collaboration with Xavier University. Metrics is the language of business. But part of why this one is so important is this is an area where I think it's fair to say there has not been a standard language in the medical device space for what does product quality mean and how do we measure it. This project is aimed at starting to fill in that gap. Companies all have their own local versions of measuring quality and quality system performance. I think the idea here, as I think about it, is if we can have a common language that we could share across industry where that's appropriate, but also when we're having conversations with the FDA and all be speaking the same language, that could be a very powerful thing. So we've selected 3 metrics, a pre-market, a production, and a post-market metric. We're in the process of working our way through pilots on those and coordinating with the Office of Compliance on some separate work that they've got going at looking at more product quality specific metrics and seeing how we pull it all together and then what do we do with them. Next up is the Quality Analytics Project, and I would say this one's a little different than the other 3 in that I would say the other 3 are largely driven by industry with counsel and input from the FDA. This one, the model, I think it's fair to say, is flipped. This is a project that really aligns very closely with the FDA's strategic imperatives and priorities, as we heard from Dr. Shuren this morning. Ann Ferreter, who's with us today, is really driving this along with third-party payer information. So on this one, industry is more of counsel, I think it's fair to say, to the project. But it's an important one for all the reasons that we heard from Dr. Shuren this morning. It's going to take medical device quality up close to the same standard once we deliver it that we expect as consumers for everything else that we interact with in our lives. There are 7 parameters that are being looked at, things like safety, like usability, like reliability, that we're looking at FDA databases as well as independent, so not company data, streams that can be fed. Lots of opportunity here. I think the counsel of industry to the payers and to the FDA on this one is largely around this last bullet, is making sure that the project doesn't outpace how we feel about the quality and the fairness, I'll call it, of the data. The quality of the data, pulling data streams from different registries. We just had a good question on the NEST project about that. And we heard that theme throughout this morning's presentation about as we try to really mine clinical data and registry data for multiple uses, how complete is it, how good is it? And particularly if we're going to try to apply it for different uses here, how good is that, and particularly pre-UDI data? And the fairness piece, I know from an industry perspective, one of the ones on our minds is the reality is different companies are at different levels of maturity in their understanding and their compliance with certain FDA requirements around adverse event reporting, recall reporting. And so if we're going to start to use that data to judge the quality of the devices, are we sure that it will be used appropriately and again that it's fair? So it's an exciting one, but it's got one that I think the data, which is, if there's a theme today's presentation, perhaps that's it, the data will be the key. And then finally, the competency model project. So if the maturity model project was about assessing how mature and what does great systems and quality systems and processes look like, you can think about this one as providing some tools to be able to answer the question, what do great quality professionals look like? Because it's people and process that ultimately have to come together here to deliver great products for customers. The idea here is to put together some definitions of what kinds of competency it takes to be able to execute your quality system, to be able to grow and mature quality professionals. We've got some white papers in the works around management review as a really important first step here. And this is one, again, that just kind of rounds out the picture and starts to move us forward. So it's a great time to join the movement. If you don't currently belong to MDIC, I would encourage you to talk to Bill and to join. I've been involved, and Stryker's been a member since it was a year in the spring, and it's been remarkable to see the growth and the momentum that has come just in that one period of time, and today's another great example of that. Take advantage of open forum, go to the website. It really is a time to join the movement, join the conversation, because we're getting close to actually putting many of these projects in play, and your feedback, whether it's from a customer perspective, a regulatory perspective, or an industry perspective, will be an important part of our success.
Yeah, so I want to echo that, and I want to remind you that the movement is not just about the FDA and the MDIC members. The movement is also about patients and payers and other members of our ecosystem. So joining the movement, this is really a call to action. Working with us to help us define what the 2017 priorities need to be, help us identify those really critical few features that really drive a company beyond compliance to a true quality model, as Jeff said, so that I can take a look and look up on a resource like we can do with our cars today and find out who really makes the very best stint out there. This kind of thing is very important, not only to us as, I think, as regulators and as manufacturers, but obviously to us as human beings and citizens of this community. So join the fun.